AI is not ever going to get to that place where it's like, you are psychotic. And I admit, I don't know that that would land well.
And to its credit, it does give you a precursor of don't rely on this for
That's
therapy.
true.
This is not a therapist.
The one who was saying it was a therapist
Had, identified a theoretical orientation, which was a little trippy.
Did he go to grad school and explore this?
Right. Yeah.
This is Shrinks and Giggles, your no BS guide to navigating the pitfalls of modern mental health.
From AI therapy to self-diagnosis spirals, we're here to cut through the pop psych noise from your feed.
I'm Melissa.
And I'm Michaela, your psychologist BFFs.
Let's dive in.
Welcome to our first episode.
So if we just talk, right?
Yeah. I think if we just talk, it'll be fine. But we should introduce ourselves.
I'm Melissa. I'm a psychologist. I own Aspire Therapy Center.
Woo woo. And I'm Michaela. I'm also a psychologist. And I work at Aspire Therapy Center.
I supervise Michaela, so it's easy to talk about her. I think she's very compassionate. She is very intuitive and great with critical thinking and navigating challenges as they come down the pike. She's someone I know and trust and have worked with for a long time. And that's pretty awesome.
Melissa, you are my friend, my mentor, my guide, my sounding board. You are a very important person in my life. And I'm excited that we're doing a podcast together.
We wanted to do a podcast to give voice to psychologists in a more intentional way. There's a lot of commentary about mental health, and while there are some influencers within the mental health sphere, some of whom are licensed, there's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of clients coming in, learning a lot about themselves online, but also being confused about what they're learning. It's overwhelming, and there's so much that's changing within the mental health space that we wanted to give voice to that and explore what pop psychology really is putting out there and what psychology has to say about that.
Ditto what she said. Yeah, well, that leads us into our, first episode, which is about emerging AI and chatbots, and can they be therapists?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. There's a lot of Reddit commentary. There was an AI chatbot that was downloaded 1.5 million times during the pandemic. There's a lot of people who are looking for mental health services and struggling to access them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there is probably some curiosity around that. There's a lot of talk of the expense of therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's more affordable to use a chatbot, but I think we want to dive into, is it really helpful?
All right. So there was an article in Time magazine about AI and the use of AI, and it was actually talking about it more from the lens of learning. But what it was really highlighting is that repetitive use of AI starts to degrade critical thinking skills. And I was thinking about that associated with the cost of therapy, in the sense that if you start to degrade critical thinking skills, you're really undermining that sense of self-efficacy. You're really undermining that ability to be like, okay, I can do this. I can feel better. I can be less anxious. I can be less depressed. So there was MIT, right? They were doing some research related to AI as well. So in looking at some of that, what they were finding is that continuous use of AI really does start to amplify loneliness and increase dependence on continuing to use it. And I was thinking about, from a psychology standpoint as well, that with AI, we're really, we've heard this from some clients as well. We've had clients within the company that are coming to us and they're exploring their emotions when they're not in session, and they're relying on ChatGPT or maybe a chatbot or things like that. And they're starting to internalize that voice. Like, they're using that as a sounding board to be like, okay, well, what do I want to hear? What do I need? Maybe problem solving things that they otherwise would try to do on their own.
Yeah. Or with friends, and they're not leaning on friends or community or social circles, or they feel like I'm burdening my friends because I've talked about this one thing over and over and over again, and I won't see my therapist till next week. And supplementing it with therapy, is not awful, but, I think that it is creating a distance between actual reality.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about this last night a little bit too. I think there's something to be said for some degree of validation, but I was using the White Lotus analogy and well, if you're like, a character in White Lotus and you're one of the wealthy people at that hotel or whatever.
Yeah.
For those who are not familiar, that's the general plot. There's a lot more to it than that, but nonetheless. Yeah.
No spoilers. Yeah.
If you're, going to this hotel where you have a lot of money to throw around, everyone's going to be very nice to you because they want to be tipped well and they're going to do everything that you want and cater to you. But that doesn't mean that they know you or that they actually know kind of the underpinnings of your psyche and how you're functioning.
Yeah.
So, it was just, I was thinking about it from that angle that there's sort of this like, okay, you get the place of like, all right, yes, I have the space to be like, look, I have an emotion.
And it will validate your feelings, but will not maybe give you hard truths or help you really navigate another person's emotions too. And talking about what would that person be feeling in this situation or etc.
Definitely. I was chatting with a client and they were like, yeah, I've used AI before between sessions. And it's maybe helpful for me kind of documenting my thought loop, almost like writing it down, which would be a therapeutic assignment to let's write down all of your thoughts or kind of get to the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. Cognitive behavioral exercise, right? But once they hit the bottom of the barrel, AI doesn't recognize it. It doesn't have the ability to be like, oh, you're at the end. It just sits there with you and lets you continue to spin your wheels.
Yeah. It also doesn't pick up on, your facial expressions. And I think that's a really important part of therapy is you can do it virtually or in person. You can see a person's emotions and when they start to cry or you start to, laugh, you can't see anything. And while I think there are great things from technology, it is ultimately lacking empathy, compassion, and humanity.
AI doesn't know how to read nonverbals. It doesn't know how you were saying something. Right. And so you might be saying something, but actually mean something else.
Sarcasm or nuance.
Oh, heck no.
No.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. AI is not able to understand how we learn. It's not able to understand how we perceive the world. Right. So it can literally just regurgitate and compress information it finds on the internet. And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, the other piece of using a chatbot or something on the internet is that it doesn't follow any sort of mandated reporting, limits of confidentiality. It doesn't protect your information. A friend of mine, when I was sharing this with her as well, that was her first thought is none of it's private. None of it is secret or sacred, protected. And if you're sharing really things that people do come to therapy for, you don't want that on the internet. And I think that we're in that phenomenon lately. And maybe we're just now realizing, okay, if you post something online when you're 12 or 14, it does come back and haunt you and could cancel you, right? So you do want some protection.
Yeah. With in-person services, I know there can be that idea, not experience. I know from my own personal experience that, going into a therapist's office, you're like, oh, this is where I do all of that work.
Yeah. I've had multiple people tell me, this is where I can come in and really feel like I'm going to unload here.
I think the trick with AI is it can't necessarily discern the layering and the nuance of diagnostics. And I mean, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of the DSM in particular. I feel like its foundation is shaky at best. But it's something that we rely on to generically categorize things. And I think AI can do some generic categorization, but it doesn't understand the nuances. I know you have had a situation where someone was kind of self-diagnosed with AI and that went awry.
Yeah. I knew someone who was using AI to sort through what was going on. I mean, was really having a tough time and was experiencing a lot of identity issues, mood volatility, and thought that it was ADHD. And maybe up until that point, it always envisioned that they had ADHD, maybe from social media or from, examples on from friends, etc. But when she was talking to AI, it was validating. And it wasn't just the ADHD. There was a lot of stuff that she was processing that made her feel that, okay, I'm healing things. I'm healing past experiences and past trauma. And in reality, she was having a grandiose and elevated mood and ended up having a psychotic break because she did get on some sort of stimulant medication. And stimulant medication, if you're bipolar, can cause a manic episode. She was probably having hypomanic episodes throughout her life, but then
Sure.
it then led to a break. So
Yeah.
relying on something that can't figure out the subtleties of that. Yeah. And I know that's on, the person who gave her the stimulants too.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
It can be hard enough sometimes, yeah, I think, to decipher some of that. And being in person and working with people, you can eventually get to that space and be like, okay, oh, this is what this is. But yeah, I mean, it's not ever going to get to that place where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you were psychotic. And I admit, I don't know that that would land well. Thus, the reason that AI is not. Yeah.
And to its credit, it does give you a precursor of don't rely on this for therapy.
True.
This is not a therapist. No, it hasn't gone through grad school. It hasn't gone through supervised, work. It hasn't worked. We do over 3,000 hours of supervised work.
Right.
And with different populations and clients. And yeah, okay, you have access to the full internet, but you don't have access to the full human,
right,
range of emotions and psyche. And
yeah. Well, and back to, the nuance too. I mean, sure, if you were to literally type into AI, I am hallucinating. Maybe it would respond with something.
Call 911.
Helpful. I don't know.
It would give you some
not
resources.
Right.
Try that. Yeah.
I did not.
We didn't want to call 911 on.
I don't think it would. I mean, that's the other scary
maybe
part.
we should try that.
I mean, it's like, if you were to be like, I am about to, act on something pretty serious, I don't know that there would be any repercussions. Like, I feel like, the information is being extrapolated and fed back into AI.
Yeah.
This like perceptive loop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did want to also comment on what we were saying with how it will kind of produce diagnoses. If you put in any sort of symptoms, it's going to produce multiple diagnoses because diagnoses overlap.
Sure.
There are a lot of symptoms that coexist within each one, and that's what we kind of mean. We are testing psychologists, so we, deal with that as well. And I've tested it before, and it produces every single diagnosis that it could possibly be.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like the treatment planner is almost the same.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have a treatment planner that'll just spit out every single intervention that someone should potentially benefit from. There's like 30 pages. No one's going to read 30 pages.
No. And it's not going to work for your life. And that's where a therapist can, tweak and modify and help you sort out what does work best for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think it extracts a lot of context for symptoms as well. So, I mean, on the assessment piece, we do a lot of work with people where we're looking at, okay, well, how does your brain process this way? And how do you recall information best? And how do you learn best? And AI can't decipher those things and wouldn't think. Doesn't respond in a manner like a human too.
Doesn't navigate the internet and give you the answer.
It won't allow you to contextualize your own self and your experiences. Because, sure, you may have a symptom and it may be derived from point X or point Y or, I mean, you could have a learning problem and be like, I can never get through a book and think it's an attentional concern, but actually it's a subtle learning disorder or whatever.
Yeah.
AI is not going to know that.
No, it's not going to be able to do what the testing does. And, just to even add one of the, I think, maybe draws that people have is it does sort of remember you and it learns. So it's like its biggest thing is if you have an account with us, it'll, continue to apply the knowledge that it learns. And, yes, I don't think a therapist can remember every single thing you say, every single session, especially, we both have long-term clients. And so, yeah, but the difference is that we know those clients, we know them, we, have understanding of their family systems and, all these things and their personality. And AI is not going to know that, even though it'll remember all the facts.
Right.
It won't have the human element, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Which is the point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it won't know when to challenge you cognitively or when to challenge something that's going on. It's just simply won't. If you are insightful enough into yourself to be like, I keep having this particular thought, it may help with a reframe of that, but it's not going to help otherwise. I started off being a psychologist with the idea of, humanism, straight up, and I will openly concede that AI can on the surface validate, but it's very surface. It's that person you meet where you're like, you're being really nice to me, but do you really like me? Yeah. You're never gonna feel liked by AI, even if you are. They're like,
I like you. I like you.
I mean, in working around with some of the chatbots, I think some are better than others. I definitely think ones that are sponsored by mental health professionals may be more useful, helpful in terms of perhaps practical work in, again, if there's insight into, oh, I'm having this thought again, I'm having this problem, that you can go to, the AI chatbot or something like that and be like, hey, I need a new way to challenge, they're
this
talking about me.
Right. This interaction.
Right. Yeah. And they really hate me or whatever. Just, kind of, getting feedback.
Yeah. It'll give you advice out of like a cognitive behavioral therapy workbbook for sure.
Yeah.
And CBT is great. It's empirically proven. It is, a very solid way to take action steps towards changing your thoughts and feelings and your emotions, and you're emotionally regulating and frustration tolerance, lots of good things.
Yeah, no, it's great.
But what we were finding when we were messing around with it was that you kind of have to be ready. A lot of people are, okay, I'm ready for therapy. They don't know what that entails and how, to engage in that. And if something's just going to, CBT can be a little bit like, do this,
Yeah.
You're like, but I can't do it, right? There's a lot of people that like, okay, especially our, ADHDers, you want to so badly to do something. You want to, you have the motivation, and yet for whatever reason, there's constantly an obstacle. Totally. All the skills, all the things to do. Yeah. And you just can't do it. And that's where I think, working with someone, for a real human is helpful.
I think as an adjunct to therapy, it's really helpful.
Yeah.
I do. Like, I think particularly if you are resonating with the idea of doing therapy homework, and I would say that maybe, I mean, honestly, I'll say a 6. Maybe about 1 in 6 of the clients that I've worked with over the year is like, yes, I love homework. I love do homework. And they come back in and they like have written the list. They've done the mood logs. They do all the things because they're really, really trying to understand themselves. I think AI for those folks is, an amazing tool that makes it a little bit less paper heavy and a little bit easier to maybe have a conversational context for an assignment. Yeah. So I think in those settings, it's great. I think a lot of people are trying to rely on it in other contexts. I mean, I know this is popping up, in a lot of representations of therapy too. The idea of even like a text therapist, which I know theoretically is a human, although who knows? Right. But, I mean, it's like, okay, well, I can't afford real therapy. So, I mean, yes, you're gonna maybe feel a little bit better that you're like, I have somewhere to put this. But you aren't gonna feel more connected or regulated beyond that. It's just going to maybe provide a container.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like a cold one that you don't want to reuse.
It will not hug you. I mean, we won't hug you either, but
No.
we'll give you a emotional hug.
Yeah. We will be as, yeah,
We'll give you tissue.
definitely happy to give
There's
tissue.
blankets. There's a comfy couch.
Right. Happy to do check-ins, offer space,
Yeah.
kick your feet up. Yeah.
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 I mean, that is what I have found that a lot of my clients do use it for, is that when you are, tapped out with your friends, like I was saying, and tapped out with your, can't see your therapist and just want another set of eyes or another mind on it, they'll use it for that. And I think that that's fine. I agree. Putting it in, sometimes people don't want to journal. When I journal, I write so much. Writing would actually cause more carpal tunnel in my wrist. So, if you wanted to journal it in there, but you would also caution, like, yeah, it's not private. So, use that with a grain of salt, and, protect your health information. It's important to keep things, protected.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, I think the other thing is just with experimenting with the tutor bots, the pacing is something both to be aware of. Like if you genuinely are just kind of looking for something to be mirrored back to you, that's fine. Maybe that's helpful. But if you're feeling extremely dialed up and anxious and you go use an AI bot, it's going to tell you it's thinking for the longest 10 seconds of your life.
Spinning.
And I'm sure that will eventually
get better, probably.
But for the time being, it thinks way too hard.
Yeah, we won't stare at you. Think. Like,
not unless we think you.
And I mean, we have been experimenting with the chatbots, and they are just they're struggling.
I think there's two different ways to use AI. So there's the therapeutic context. I would say most people in the therapeutic context are not going to be writing in AI, what's wrong with me? I mean, maybe, but it seems less likely. And if they are saying what's wrong with me and AI is prompting them for symptoms, then yes, I do think that there's a tendency that could lean almost towards, I don't know if over pathologizing is fully accurate, but definitely lean towards almost self-determinism or something like that, where it's like, okay, if you think you have something going on, you're going to present those symptoms to AI. And AI isn't going to necessarily ask you about other symptoms.
Right.
Whereas with obviously with psychologists, they're going to ask because they know to ask, because they were trained to ask, and they know the nuance, and they know there's greater context, and that there could be a lot of reasons that you walk into a room and you forgot why you walked into the room.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, the symptom list that a lot of people say on social media, I think one of the bigger ones, and even just to get people through the door, but people have told me, like, oh, there's a list of 10 ADHD symptoms. I have 3 of them. You could have ADHD. And, sometimes the people will really attach to that. And but you need to go to a professional and get some testing done to totally rule it out. Yeah. Just walking into a room and forgetting something is not ADHD. Just, they're just forgetting multi-step instruction. It's not ADHD, so it does take a little bit more. And so I think if you're getting a diagnosis from it's probably a red flag. Yeah, I'd say if you're, I guess that could be something, right? If you're wanting to ask something that could literally scour the entire internet and tell you a couple of different things that could be to then get you in the door with a therapist, you can also ask AI for therapists in your area. It will give you a list of referrals and sources. Those are, you can use it as a search engine to find things, but using it as your entire operating system, all we're saying is it could probably lead to some loneliness, isolation, and decline in your critical thinking skills. Hey, we're going to try to play with this and show you guys what we've been talking about.
So, Michaela, we're in the process right now of you downloading one of the chatbots that we experimented with the other evening.
Yes.
Just to give a sample of the kind of responses that you may get. Now, this particular one was not created by mental health professionals, I don't believe. So, keep that in mind. And we're not going to identify the particular company, but just to kind of give some context to how a chatbot might respond to some common prompts.
So there's a couple different ways that you can engage with this. It does ask you, how you would like to engage with the chatbot today. And we're going to do a little bit of a deeper conversation. So let's put it on. Where's the fall sound? Okay, here we go.
Hello, I'm here for a deep conversation. What's on your mind today? Automatically listen when I finish speaking, and I'll process your words when you pause for 5 seconds. If you need to interrupt me while I'm talking, just tap the center circle.
I'm having a lot of difficulty getting started on my assignments. I really care about school, but I just can't get anything done and can't get going.
It sounds like you're feeling really stuck and struggling to get started on your assignments, despite genuinely caring about school. That can be a really frustrating and helpless feeling. Can you tell me more about what's going through your mind when you sit down to work on an assignment? What's the first thought that comes up for you, and how does that make you feel?
The first thought that comes into my mind is that I'm going to get started on something and then I'll get pinged by my phone, or I'll realize I have to send out an email, or I will realize that I need to reorganize my desk because it's not just so that I can concentrate. And then it takes me forever to actually get back to the point of even trying to start, unless it's almost even past the time the assignment's due.
It sounds like you're getting caught up in a cycle of distractions and procrastination, and it's making it really hard for you to get started on your assignments. It's like you're getting sidetracked by all these little tasks and notifications, and before you know it, time has slipped away. That can be really overwhelming and frustrating. I want to explore this a bit further. When you think about starting an assignment, and then you get sidetracked by all these other things, what do you think is driving that behavior? Are you feeling anxious or uncertain about the assignment itself? Or is there something else going on that's making it hard for you to focus?
I'm not feeling anxious. I'm feeling like there's a lot of different things that I could do at any given moment. And so it's hard for me to focus on what I sat down to do.
It sounds like you're feeling a sense of overwhelm, but not necessarily anxiety. It seems like you're repeating this phrase, and I want to make sure. It seems like we're circling back to this feeling of being overwhelmed by choices. I sense that we're circling back to this feeling of having many options and struggling to focus. It's like you're feeling a sense of freedom, but also a sense of overwhelm. Let's try to drill down a bit deeper. When you say, there's a lot of different things that I could do at any given moment, what does that feel like in your body? Is it a sense of excitement, or is it more of a sense of weight or responsibility? In other words, what's the emotional tone of this feeling of having many options? Is it a positive feeling, or is it more neutral or even negative?
She doesn't shut up.
I don't feel a sense of freedom. I want to know how to solve this problem. I want to know what to do to be less distracted and get my work done.
It sounds like you're feeling frustrated and stuck, and you're looking for a way to overcome this challenge.
Feeling frustrated.
You want to find a way to stay focused and get your work done,
Right.
despite the distractions. I'm here to help you explore this issue and find a solution that works for you.
Anytime.
Before we dive into potential strategies, I want to ask one more question to help us get to the root of the issue. What do you think would happen if you were able to focus and get your work done efficiently? What would that mean for you? And how would that feel?
That would feel awesome and would mean that I'm accomplishing the things that I'm setting out to do.
It sounds like being able to focus and get your work done would give you a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction.
I mean, great.
It's like you'd be able to check off those tasks
Yeah.
and feel a sense of pride and fulfillment.
Yeah.
I want to explore that feeling a bit further. What do you think is driving your desire to feel accomplished and satisfied with your work? Is it a desire to prove something to
nature.
yourself or others?
Literally.
Is it more about feeling a sense of personal
This would be
fulfillment?
about lack of insight.
In other words,
Yeah.
what's the underlying motivation behind your desire to get your work done and feel accomplished?
Okay, I think we're done.
I mean, just as much talking as a thing can do. I think, that's not what therapy is like.
Yeah, no, it strikes me like just going through that again, it strikes me like it read the textbook I read in undergrad about helping skills, and it's capable of summarizing and restating everything I say, which, okay, yeah, I mean, if you don't feel like anyone's listening to you, but I don't know that you're going to feel listened to if somebody's saying the same thing to you 6 times over, because telling me I'm feeling frustrated 6 times over was making me feel frustrated.
It was
Even though it wasn't my problem, I was like, I am frustrated right now. You are not responding with anything else, or that if I am asking and actively prompting for a solution. I mean, if a client comes to you and they're like, I want help with, you're not going to be like, let's explore that frustration and emotion that you're having around the desire for help.
I hear you're frustrated. Does that make you feel anxious or sad or angry or depressed? Or do you want to jump, in a lake? Or do you want to of examples? And you're like, what was the first question you asked me?
Right. That's the other thing. Yeah. Your actual ability to remember what both, because it doesn't know. And it's like, let's ask 6 things. That's a basic, you would tell your therapy supervisee, hey, don't overwhelm the client.
Talking.
Right. Ask a question.
Literally, like, do you see your client slowly, their eyes glazing over, and they're like, I don't know what you're asking me. Imagine, especially someone with ADHD. They're like, what?
Right. There's kind of the joke and the meme of the therapist falling asleep during session. I think this client.
Yeah. If we were playing a game, the therapist won and AI lost 1-0. And like we've said, really the only examples of when it might get some bonus points, because it's really not going to beat out a therapist when it can, record your journal entries, tell you some CBT skills, maybe validate your feelings in the moment.
Very briefly. Yeah.
Very briefly. Yes, until it frustrates you, because all it does is validate.
Over.
Even last night we were playing with another one. We were typing. It was a typing one, and then that was more of the CBT one, and it did kind of circle back, and it was like, well, would you like to do this in the morning? Would you like to take a moment and just like do a grounding exercise in the morning? And we were like, no, we don't want to do it in the morning. And then it was like, ask another question. And then it went back. It was like, would you do it in the evening? And we were like, no. And then asked another question. And then it was like, in the evening. You're doing the grounding exercise.
Right.
It had no ability to move on from box breathing and the grounding exercise.
Right. No.
There's efficacy in those things, but
yeah, if you have somebody that's like, no, and I have literally had people come in and you give them a mood log and then they're like, are you kidding me right now?
I want to do this.
Like,
Yeah.
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 Well, so if I was going to answer instead of AI on the prompts that I was doing, I would first probably do something vaguely similar to AI, and then I would start exploring, okay, well, so what's on your plate? And, how much do you actually want and need to get this done? So I think that's where I would go conversationally, which, then, yeah, would be a different thing because I don't know that I would necessarily meet them at the space that the AI was kind of forcing, which is like, but how do you feel about it? And how do you feel about it? And then kind of heading near this place of, well, why do you need purpose? Which, is a pretty hefty existential space.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But if somebody's like, I just can't get this writing assignment done. Yeah. Maybe exploring how they've gotten other writing assignments done, facilitating self-efficacy. What have they already done? Building their own critical thinking. Okay, how or what are some ways you could solve this yourself?
Yeah.
What are some things you've done in the past that have worked? What doesn't work? There wasn't a lot of exploration of that at all. I mean, it was just the presumption that you were stuck in emotional soup if you couldn't get an assignment done.
Yeah. The reason why you're not doing something is because you're anxious or because you're, which, could be the case. But I think too, if you're trying to find a solution, you shouldn't really be sitting only in emotions. It's like, okay, what feels okay? Can you open up a book and set a timer for 2 minutes and read the first 2 sentences and then close the book? Like minimize so much of our society. There's so much pressure to do everything perfectly and do it now and constantly be producing and producing and producing. And your value is measured on like your productivity output. And it's often the case with my clients that we're like, what is the tiniest step you can take? Because that's going to help with your anticipation and anxiety. And that's going to help you start to create discipline. A lot of times with like doing a paper or doing a task where you have to read a book that may not be like the most exciting thing, but the ultimate goal is like, I want to get my degree. I want to graduate. I want to, whatever it is. I want to be a doctor or blah, blah, blah. All of that. It's like, that is such a big motivator only some of the time. Like you can't always tap into that. And so, yeah, a lot of life is the menial, like how are you creating discipline within your life so that you can get your tasks done, feel accomplished and relax. Watch your favorite TV show and not feel like I have to do this and do this and do this, and especially if you're a mom, if you're navigating, different, problems in your relationships, you have to be able to put some of that aside in therapy and really focus on the person, what they're bringing in and what they're complaining about. And you can always, when there's not a bunch of crap happening, that we don't have a bunch of stuff to do, then you can dive into like your childhood life. You go a little bit deeper. But yeah, I think it kind of gets stuck in this loop and it's not able to connect on a basic human level. This was really fun.
So fun.
It was awesome. Thank you for listening and joining us. And let us know, are you planning on using AI in any form of therapy?
Yeah, at Aspire Therapy on Insta. We're there.
Yeah, let us know.
Love to hear from you.
And tune in next week. We're going to be talking about ADHD, which we have a lot to say about. Be sure to like and subscribe.
And we'll see you next time.